Are you a yes person or a no person? If you are a yes person, this video is for you. Well, as children, we learned that saying no was impolite or inappropriate. If you said no to your mom, dad, teacher, uncle, grandparents, and so on, you were most certainly considered to be being rude, and you would have probably been told off for it. Saying no was off limits, and yes was the polite and likable thing to say. Now that we are all adults, we are more mature and capable of making our own choices, as well as knowing the difference between wrong and right. Therefore, no shouldn't be an off-limits word, but rather something that we decide on ourselves, based on our own discretion. But sadly, we hold on to our childhood beliefs and we continue to associate no with being dislikable, bad-mannered, unkind, or selfish. We worry that if we say no, we will feel humiliated, guilty, or ashamed, and will end up being alone, rejected, or abandoned. Why can't we say no? Are we afraid of being unpopular? Do we want to be the superhero who deals with everything? There are many reasons behind this behavior, but one thing is clear. If you haven't developed the skill of using the small no word, you will suffer over the long term. The simple act of saying no can be surprisingly difficult for many people. It often stems from a desire to please others, a fear of conflict, or a sense of obligation. However, mastering the art of saying no is essential for maintaining your well-being and achieving your goals. When you constantly say yes to requests, you risk spreading yourself too thin, neglecting your own needs, and ultimately feeling overwhelmed. Prioritizing your time and energy is crucial for managing stress and avoiding burnout. Learning to say no doesn't mean you're being selfish or uncooperative. In fact, it can strengthen your relationships by allowing you to be more present and focused when you do commit to something. One effective approach to saying no is to be direct and assertive. Clearly state your boundaries and explain your reasons concisely. Avoid apologizing or making excuses, as this can weaken your stance. It's important to remember that you have the right to say no without feeling guilty or obligated. Your time and energy are valuable resources, and you deserve to use them wisely. By practicing saying no regularly, you'll gain confidence in your ability to set limits and prioritize your needs. This newfound assertiveness can positively impact various aspects of your life, from your work-life balance to your personal relationships. Don't be afraid to experiment with different ways of saying no. You might find that a simple, firm no is sufficient in some situations, while in others, a more empathetic approach is necessary. Remember, saying no doesn't mean you're rejecting the person making the request. It simply means you're prioritizing your own well-being and commitments. When faced with a difficult request, take a moment to assess your current workload and priorities. If you genuinely can't take on the task, politely decline and offer alternative solutions if possible. Saying no can also be a powerful tool for self-care. By setting boundaries and protecting your time, you're creating space for activities that bring you joy and fulfillment. It's essential to practice self-compassion when learning to say no. Be kind to yourself and understand that it's okay to prioritize your needs. Many of us are afraid of conflict. We don't like others to be angry with us or critical of us. We therefore avoid saying no when we are afraid that it will put us into conflict with someone else, whether that someone is an intimate partner, a colleague or friend, or a supervisor or boss. You have a desire to please those in your life. Most people want to be liked and appreciated, and you might worry that refusing someone's request will disappoint them or damage your relationship. This is especially true if the person asking is someone you care about, like a friend, family member, or colleague. The fear of losing someone's approval often outweighs the need to protect your own time and energy. You have a fear of conflict. Saying no can sometimes lead to disagreements. Wanting to avoid confrontations can make it easier to say yes, even when you want to say no. You might worry that the other person will react negatively or argue with you, and this can be particularly stressful if you're not confident in these situations. You want to avoid feeling guilty. Guilt is another powerful emotion that can make saying no difficult. You might feel responsible for other people's happiness, leading you to put their needs before your own. This can be especially true in relationships where you feel a duty to help and support the other person. The feeling of guilt can be overwhelming and makes it hard to prioritize yourself. You were taught to be a people pleaser. From a young age, many people are taught to be helpful. You might have been raised to always be polite and considerate, often at the expense of your own comfort and needs. This ingrained habit can make it difficult to say no, even when it's necessary for your well-being. Resist automatically saying yes. You'll be the one taking on the work. Instead, ask yourself, do I really want to do this? There are few proposals or invitations which need an immediate reply. Instead of reacting with a cheerful sure, say, let me think about it. This way you'll learn to take some time to reflect about what's been asked of you, and you can see how the assignment fits into your existing workload before you reply. If it's very hard for you to say no, start by saying no to small things first. This can be an invitation you don't feel like going to, or the choice of a lunch restaurant you don't really like, for example. By practicing this way, you'll be better equipped to decline bigger propositions within a business context. Don't wait too long to say no. When it comes to saying no, it's best not to beat around the bush and deliver a rapid response. Given the indirect nature of digital messaging, it can be tempting to simply ignore messages that make you uncomfortable. For example, if a client wants you to do some extra work over the weekend, or a friend asks you to help them move, your first instinct might be to hold fire while you figure out the best way to say no. The longer you wait, the more pressure you might feel to give in and say yes. This is compounded by the stress you'll feel in not having answered, so you'll potentially end up doing something you don't want to and feeling bad to boot. In our experience, it takes a while before you feel comfortable saying no when needed. However, think about it as a skill you need to cultivate. The more often you say no, the less awkward it should feel, and anyway, the positives should easily outweigh the negatives. Know your development goals. Be aware of your professional goals and the skills you need to acquire to achieve them. Knowing your goals helps you to decide if new opportunities match with them. This way you can make solid decisions and grab development opportunities you might have otherwise overlooked. Gather your courage. If you normally say yes, it will take courage to say no. Especially if the person asking is insisting and doesn't give up easily. You might feel like you're not living up to expectations by letting someone down. You might also be afraid of creating a bad impression. However, those things might be the cost of staying in the driver's seat. Of course, the risks and benefits of declining a request, both personally and professionally, should always be carefully considered. Don't give lengthy excuses. People don't want your excuses. So don't justify yourself by laying out your entire calendar, and don't beat about the bush. Say no to the request once, with clear determination, and give a short explanation. The other person should hear a clear no and not a no, but, because this can reopen the discussion. By getting straight to the point, you'll save everybody time and help yourself stay focused on your tasks. Seek an alternative. While saying no, try to help the person who approached you about the task. What other options are there? How can you help find a way to tackle the request or project? Is there perhaps another colleague who might be available? Could the situation be solved by working with someone external? By discussing alternatives, you show your commitment and willingness to support them. Say no to the request, not the person. Make clear that you're not rejecting the person, you're just declining their invitation. By being polite and friendly, you will let them know you aren't rejecting them. Don't just write an email. Communicating directly with the person builds the relationship further. Be ready to miss out. Some of us don't say no because they hate missing an opportunity. And saying no always leads to a missed opportunity. But in reality, it's a trade-off. Remind yourself that when you're saying no, you're saying yes to something more important. You're just choosing one thing over another. Saying no when you mean no is a relevant skill. For some people it comes naturally. For others, it requires habitual practice and conscious use. We all have obligations that we can't reject, but within the limits of your control, you should ensure that you're operating at the optimal level. So respect your boundaries by saying no, which is at the same time saying yes to yourself, something more important, or someone else. Be respectful. If the answer to a request is no, make sure that's understood quickly from the get-go. You can say no respectfully, but saying, "I'll get back to you," is not helpful and even confusing if your real answer is no. Be empathetic. Demonstrate that you hear, understand, and are honored to be included, and then say, "Thanks for thinking of me, but I wouldn't be comfortable doing that," or "I appreciate the offer, but that's just not my thing." Boundaries are a part of what makes us different as individuals. We all set our own, so enforce them with confidence and with compassion for yourself and for others. Stay firm and consistent. Once you have said no, stay firm. It's important to avoid giving in to pressure or persistent requests. Reiterate your refusal politely, but firmly, if necessary. For instance, if someone keeps asking after you've said no, you can say, "I know you're disappointed, but my answer hasn't changed." Reflect on past experiences. Look back on times when you said no and felt good about it to reinforce the positive outcomes of setting boundaries. For example, recall a time when saying no allowed you to spend quality time with your family or focus on an important project. Remembering these benefits can strengthen your resolve to say no in the future. Remember, saying no is a skill that takes practice. Don't get discouraged if it feels uncomfortable at first. The more you practice, the easier it will become. By mastering the art of saying no, you'll experience greater peace of mind, improved relationships, and increased productivity. So, the next time you're faced with a request that doesn't align with your priorities, don't hesitate to say no. It's a powerful word that can transform your life. Remember, saying no is not about being selfish, it's about being self-aware and setting healthy boundaries. By prioritizing your own needs, you'll be better equipped to support others and make a positive impact on the world. So, embrace the power of no and live a more fulfilling and balanced life. Ladies and gentlemen, this was it for the day. Make sure you comment your experience or any opinion. If you think the video is cool, please